transport planning must be about is to look much more holistically at the costs it has that it's facing and the cost that it's building in to the community as a whole. If in fact we can find that by building a community that's walkable, that's bikeable, that a number of those trips are by that walking or that biking, then the road doesn't need to be quite as big. It doesn't need to carry quite as many cars, and that can become the most cost-effective way to address a problem. It doesn't take much to be able to look at the energy field to realize what a revolutionary concept least cost planning can be. In the energy field, when probably now 30, 40 years ago, when power companies looked, every time they were worried about having enough power, they looked only at building more power plants. And as the environmental degradation that came with those oftentimes coal-fired or nuclear, and certainly looking at what's happened in Japan recently gives us additional pause about nuclear power. When you were looking only at the cost of building that power plant to be able to produce the additional kilowatt hours, that was a pretty straightforward decision. But least cost planning required those same power companies to be able to look at a whole different way of achieving that same power need. If they could, by investing in conservation, by double painting windows, by putting in weather stripping, by putting on solar panels, by a whole series of other things, if they could achieve that same needed power by having less demand at a more cost-effective way, then that was a much better and much more efficient investment. Likewise, in public transport, that same methodology, that same rigor of economic analysis that looks at what the full costs are of that spread out development are compared to a denser development, a place where much of that infrastructure is shared by many more people, and in fact, most importantly, doesn't have to demand the same level of infrastructure because they can do much of it by walking or biking or other public transport ways of getting around, which are much more efficient, much more cost-effective in the long run. Requires big investment up front in public transport, but the payoff is so great that it makes best sense.